welcome to all. Would you have thought that a simple nun would have known Billy the Kid? Or that one would work and travel alone in the West where Geronimo was fearsome? Could a simple nun fight for justice in the Wild West? Protection for the most innocent and most guilty. I was born Rose Marie Segal in Italy. When I was 4 years old, my family moved to Cincinnati, Ohio. I began my novitiate when I was 16 and took the name Sister Blandina. I can still recall the day that Mother Josephine's letter arrived. My sister Maria and I scoured the map to find Trinidad on the island of Cuba. Oh, well, imagine my surprise when I boarded the train and they told me I was going to be traveling to the plains. Sister, I was told, you may be snowbound on the plains and you will be alone, but that is not the greatest danger to you. No virtuous woman is safe near a cowboy. I was 22 when I traveled the Santa Fe Trail and arrived out west. The town was, in fact, frequented by cowboys and outlaws, and lynching was a common practice. So, I reviewed my Spanish, began work on my school, and started my fight against lynching. Once, amidst a very angry lynch mob, I convinced a dying man to forgive his aggressor. Oh, the mob was fierce, but I believed that the justice system and the courts would prevail to end this conflict fairly. And it did. In fact, the event was so popular that many, many years later, it was featured on an episode of Death Valley Days. The fastest nun in the West. Protection for the most innocent and most guilty. Once in Trinidad, a student of mine informed me that a gang member, had been left to die alone in an adobe hut, not far from town. A gang led by Billy the Kid. Well, having heard of Kid and his gang, I knew they were ruthless cowboys. But nevertheless, I rushed to his side and nursed him back to health. When Billy the Kid rode into town, I was there to greet him. He thanked me for my service to his friend and offered me any favor in return. Prior to his arrival, I had learned that he was resolute to murder the physicians who had denied his friend aid. I asked him to relinquish his quest for revenge. Surprised that I was aware of his plans, and though reluctant, he agreed to spare the physicians. He kept his word. That would be the first of 3 encounters I would have with the Kid. A few years later, the Kid and his gang were attacking coaches across the frontier. We were en route from Trinidad to Santa Fe when the jockey gave us word in the carriage that a scout from a gang was approaching. I shifted my position to ensure that my bonnet gave a full view of my face as the rider approached. Our eyes met. He raised his large-brimmed hat with a wave and a bow, looked his recognition, then fairly flew the distance of about 3 rods, then stopped and gave us some of his wonderful antics on bronco maneuvers. It was indeed Billy the Kid. In 1876, I moved to Santa Fe, where I would build several schools and orphanages. I would also minister to the miners and the people at the railway sites. And I also provided spiritual counsel for the criminals in the jails. It was here that I would have my final occasion to meet with the Kid. Not only were his wrists and ankles shackled, but he was also chained to the floor. Even then, he was kind to me. The Sisters of Charity sought to aid others by building schools and orphanages and hospitals. Besides the Mount San Rafael Hospital in Trinidad, we were also sent to Old Town Pueblo, Santa Fe, Albuquerque. In Pueblo in 1882, the sisters established St. Mary's Hospital. Through my teachings with my students and orphans, I also learned the way of people in the West. I would return to Cincinnati to live out my days and work alongside my sister in the Italian immigrant community. Now, for the first time in history, my work, over 140 years ago, is being viewed as saintly. People today are advocating for me. Reality and myth are interwoven in the stories of the cowboys and outlaws of the American West. You can find my story at the end of the Santa Fe Trail. It is a compilation of letters, of my experiences that I wrote to my sister Maria. In an untamed land, a good sister stood against evil, championed justice, and taught the value of human dignity. Protection for the most innocent. And most guilty. Just think of Billy the Kid.